Okay, there we go. Right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is very much going to be not only a welcome to those of you that are going to be joining us in September, but just to kind of reassure those parents as well and explain some new things that are happening and keep you up to date to the parents as well who have boarders already here. The large majority of it is going to be just a PowerPoint presentation that I prepared, and I'm going to be talking through it. And thank you very much for sending in your questions for me to populate my my PowerPoint at the end. You'll see them there, and I will talk through each of those questions that you have already submitted. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Alex Large, and I'm head of boarding at the Royal School. I also look after the boys' boarding house, and I also teach maths and further maths, so quite a few caps on my head. Mr. Hayward apologises, he did want to come and introduce it, but he's been called away to an urgent meeting, but I'm sure that you will get a chance to meet him as well when you come over in September. So what I'd like to do is share my screen and share this presentation with you. That's there. Okay, that doesn't seem to be going full size, but we'll go with it from there. Hopefully you can see that. So as you can see, so this is a webinar. It's something we did last year, and it was very successful. And so we thought we'd do it again this year, and it's just to kind of talk through some of the key issues that parents have had, rather than me get the same question lots of times. Something that I can, I think it's right there. You go. Something I can now talk through. Ooh. Sorry, let me just start again. That didn't work. Okay, for some reason that's not coming up on full screen, but we'll leave that. The aims of today's webinar is to share the plans for September to both the new and returning parents. Where possible, we want to alleviate any concerns. I know obviously we're currently in a global pandemic, so I would like to share with you what we are doing in terms of kind of keeping people safe. And also to answer any questions you have about September. So, for you to see on the first slide, we have adopted what's called the BSA COVID Safe Charter, and this is a voluntary code to which schools can adhere to, and it's run by the Boarding Schools Association in the UK. And essentially, it was designed to make sure that parents are reassured that we will comply with all the government rules and guidance within the pandemic, and make sure that we create an environment that's as safe as possible for everyone while they're here. Last year, this webinar. Hello, hi. Could you mute? Sorry for me. Thank you. The COVID Charter itself is on the BSA website, and last year I went through it in quite a lot of detail. I think nowadays, I think now there's less of it is as relevant, but there is still a lot of key things in there that we're going to continue to do in September to make sure everything's as safe as possible. First of all, one of the key things is what do you do, or what do you need to do before you even depart from home? And the key things here is if you are traveling internationally, you must have PCR tests, especially if you're coming from an amber country, and they need to be done on day 2 and day 8. And they need to be ordered before arrival and sent to the school address in the boarder's name, so we can pick that up at reception. And that's something that you will have to do, because you will need to fill in a passenger locator form, and the confirmation you get from those PCR tests will need to be on that form. So that's really important that you do that before they come. If you have any questions about that, just send me an email or give me a call. What we recommend for international pupils upon arrival, we realise kind of previously families would come over together, that may not be possible, especially those of you that are that will need to quarantine. So here we recommend using our taxi service, which is called Central Executive. If you let us know, we can organise that for you and put the cost on the school bill. Essentially, you will be met by somebody from that firm, and they will pick them up from the airport, make sure that they comply to all the kind of COVID safe regulations in terms of mask coverings and things like that, and make sure that they deliver the border to the school safely. When we're at school, obviously, I would imagine social distancing may still apply. It might not. There is some hope that from July that we don't have to do that as much, but at the minute it looks like we are going to have to still comply to all the social distancing regulations. We have to, as a school, guarantee the availability of soap and disposable towels in all washing areas. So we have that, and this is one of our sinks in our boarding house, and we're constantly on top of that, making sure there is enough there for all the pupils. Obviously, we encourage regular hand washing for all the pupils and all the staff as well, and we have signs around the school to make sure that this is happening. We have hand sanitizer points. We have 2 or 3 in the house. We also have installed these outdoor sinks. And this year, from September, what we asked students to do is when they returned from school, they went via this outdoor sink, they washed their hands, and then they came into the house and they changed and they showered. And this hopefully reduces the risk of them bringing anything back to the boarding house. Well, at school, there are enhanced routines. There's lots of cleaning. I think cleaning happens 2 or 3 times a day now. We also wipe all the desks beforehand with this clean and safe, and all the students are now well trained at that. All the relevant staff have PPE as well, and we're just making sure that things like equipment is not shared between pupils, and if it is cleaned in between. We have to make sure that we've got clear notices explaining these procedures, which we do. We have lots of signage up around school and around the house, and we make sure that we have the right amount of people in rooms to make sure that there's not overcrowding. They're well ventilated areas and things like that. And this is something that's probably more relevant for boarders in terms of leaving the site. Again, we are quite happy for students to leave the site, but when they do, they must come and let us know where they're going. We don't really want them off site for hours at a time, and it will be to kind of local shops and things like that. And I'll go on to explain a little bit more later about how that works. We have a regular routine in terms of checking temperatures. So all temperatures are checked on the way out of the boarding house and then at night. And then obviously we have a threshold, and any temperatures that are above that, we would flag up. Hello. Obviously, we have spaces that are designated for boarders. And we have some very clear guidance, okay, that any bullying will not be tolerated. So silly things like pretending to cough on somebody like that, we have a 0 tolerance for that. In terms of quarantine and testing, really, this is how it looks, and this is the suggestion that we have come up with as a school. Lots of schools aren't even opening for quarantine, and they're making sure that you've quarantined before you arrive at school. We're trying to be as flexible as possible and allowing for students to quarantine with us. So all arrivals from an amber-list country will need to quarantine, and that's how, as it stands on, what's this, the 30th of June, that could all change. And we have decided to open on Sunday, the 29th of August. If you wish to quarantine with us, that's the date we're open. We'd like all students as much as possible. I know flights can be difficult sometimes to arrive on that day, please. And all arrivals then, therefore, for an amber-list country, we would like them to do the test for release on day 5. They will still need to do the PCR tests on day 2 and day 8. And the reason we've gone for this tactic means if they arrive on Sunday the 29th, that's their day 0. The 5th day would therefore be the Friday when they would take the test, and that gives us the weekend to get those results back to make sure the students are in school on the Monday. In terms of the boarding structure, we have 2 houses at the minute. Dartmouth is run by myself, Mr. Large, and Mrs. Compan Holt. And this is going to be from September for the older boys, so those in year kind of 9, 10 up to year 13. We also have Mrs. Large, who's on maternity leave at the minute, who is kind of like a matron, but effectively a house mum, whose role was to greet the boys after school, maybe go and watch them play sports matches, things like that. And we also have my son, Harry, who's age 3, and my other son, who's Thomas, who's born in May, so only kind of a couple of months old. And they really add to the kind of the family dynamic in Dartmouth. And I've just put our badge here, which was designed by one of our boarders this year. And it kind of ties in with our 3 values we have in Dartmouth: of confidence, character, and honesty. The confidence is around having the right amount of confidence, because some of our boys need a kind of bit of geeing up and to have a bit more confidence, and some need to kind of settle down a little bit. And character is all about having a good character. Are you doing the right thing at all times? Are you acting the right way, even when nobody's watching? And then honesty is our big one. We know with teenage boys, they're going to mess up and make mistakes. I do as well, but it's about being honest and owning their mistakes and coming to tell us, yeah, okay, if they smashed the window because they've been playing with the ball inside, but they come and tell us and they own up to that. Now, in what I think is an exciting move for September, Lichfield traditionally was a girls-only house. And from September, we are looking to run it as a co-ed house. With some of the younger boys, instead of going to Dartmouth, they would then be in Lichfield. But we're going to call that kind of house Connors, after Connor Coed, the Wolverhampton captain, Wolverhampton Wanderers. And this house will be run by Miss Johannesson and Miss Zhang. The reason we've gone for that is we think that the younger boys would benefit from kind of a family feel in terms of the older girls as well. And I think it would be a really valuable kind of learning point for both the girls that are already in the house and the boys that are joining them. They will be kept completely separate. We will abide by all the national minimum standards that we need to. The BSA, who are the Boarding Schools Association, have checked that, and lots of schools are encouraging co-ed houses nowadays. There will be all the relevant kind of security as well to keep them separate when needs be. But there will be times where they'll come together as a house, and effectively it will be a really nice family dynamic with kind of your older sisters and younger brothers. The boys will go in the older part of the house, where we've used that as kind of an isolation area this year, so it wasn't really being used. So they will be in there, and I think it will really add to the family feel that we have at the Royal from September. The girls have their kind of motto is learning, integrity, friendship, and empathy. And what I don't want to do is the boys that are joining the girls up in that boarding house, I don't want them to feel completely separated from the boys. There'll be lots of chances for them to mingle and come and do activities with the boys, and similarly join in with the girls as well. And me and Mrs. Holt will make sure that we're kind of going up there as well, showing our face to make sure we keep that connection. I also think one of the advantages of having our younger boarders all up at that side, we do have a kind of a road that separates the 2 boarding houses, and Dartmouth is a bit kind of segregated. So I think that'll also add to the kind of peace of mind for parents, that the younger lads are kind of up at school near the canteen and don't have to be kind of chaperoned up to dinner and things like that every day. In terms of the school day, we're going to have some adaptive routines. We are still going to go with the staggered starts and lunch times. So all our kind of day pupils will come in through different entrances. The lunch times are now split. We ask all boarders, where possible, to bring a laptop. We recognise this might not be possible for some of you. We do have access to computer rooms, and we also have 5 Chromebooks in each boarding house that the boys and girls can use to do some work or prep or whatever they need to do. As I mentioned before, one of the routines that we've quite liked this year is this idea of, I've called it decontaminating, but it's the idea of returning to the boarding house, having a shower, getting changed and getting ready for the evening, and kind of separating that time that they spent in school from their own personal time in the evenings. One thing we also recognised during the pandemic was a lot of these students were spending a lot of time on their screens and things like that. So we went down to one supervised prep session, and we found it really effective because we used the other prep session for a bit more your well-being tasks, getting them outside, using tasks from the boarding passport, which I'll go on to explain. We found that really successful, and actually it didn't affect any of the amount of homework that was done anyway. So we're going to go to one prep session, and that will be supervised. There will be other voluntary prep sessions, and if a student falls behind in their work, they will be asked to do an additional prep session to stay on top of their work. But we're going to try and give the boarders a bit more trust and independence and a way of managing their evenings with that this year. And where possible, we're going to try to stay in house bubbles. We will have whole school boarding activities with both the boys and girls, but we'll try and keep those for when they're outside, so they're not mixing too much. Hopefully by September, again, this will have all changed and there might be different rules for close contacts and isolations, and we can open up a little bit more, but it's better to be cautious now and open up rather than draw back in terms of that. So the general timings in the evening, they return to the house at either 3:20 or 4:20, depending on whether they have period 7 or not. And this year, the girls have done their 1 hour supervised prep before dinner, and the boys have done it after dinner. And we're going to look at that because I think some of the boys have asked for that to happen before dinner this year. So we're going to be, so some of these timings might change a little bit on consultation with some of the boarders and the staff. Dinner's around 6 o'clock, and then we have our whole house meetings at either 7:30, 7:45, and that's opportunity for us house parents to deliver messages, talk about trips that are coming up, activities, collect food orders, things like that. And also it gives the boarders a chance as well to ask us questions, and it's nice and informal and a really nice time in the evening. We then have check-ins from 9:30, where students hand in their electronic devices, come and check in with us, get their temperature taken before going to bed, and all the house should be in their rooms, lights off by 11:15 at the very latest. So that's for some of our sixth formers. This year, we have a new team of prefects in both houses, and we've decided to go through a bit of a revamp with our prefects. This year, they had to go through a formal interview process. There is an official handbook that details some of their responsibilities. So they will be in charge of collecting the food orders, helping supervise prep, giving them a bit more responsibility in the evenings as well, and they'll be on a rota. We also have a boarding council that meets every term. We intend to meet up in the canteen, and we ask the boarders to feed back to us, what could we improve? Is there anything you'd like? Tends to centre mostly around food, hence why we have it in the canteen. But that's a really useful exercise for the boarders, and we often find that because we give them the chance to speak, we often find out things that we wouldn't have if we hadn't done that. All the staff are approachable, and we try to be as flexible as possible. So like I said with the timings earlier, if the boys all decide to have prep before dinner, we will go with that. We will go with the majority. We don't have, just because it says in the handbook that prep is after dinner, doesn't mean that has to happen like that. We're really flexible, and we always encourage the students to make suggestions on how they can improve and make life easier for themselves and more comfortable. And then I've just been working on it for this year. There is a final end of year questionnaire where we ask students to put their views across in terms of what activities would you like to do in September, what's been your favourite thing about boarding, what could we improve, just so it gives us a bit of feedback as staff. We try and get rid of all paper in the boarding houses. That we have an electronic system that we have for roll calls, signing in and out, for duty reports where we send them on to the members of staff that are taking over. And it's been a really useful system that we've had this year. Especially for the signing in and out. As house parents, we have a screen, and we can automatically see where all the boarders are at any one time, which is really useful. From September, we'll also be using the system for our exeats. And just a polite reminder that all exeats, so that's where you will be going to stay somewhere else, maybe for the weekend. We need those in advance, really, on a Wednesday evening for the weekend, to put it on the system for me to approve, and then let the students go away for the weekend. We're also going to adopt a quota system for all our boarders this year, so they can only sign out to certain places a fixed number of times. We've noticed that some of them have been going to KFC and McDonald's a little bit too often for our liking, so therefore we're going to put quotas on those to make sure that they're not going to those places too many times. In terms of the holidays, from September, we're going to be sending out emails and an online form to all parents for you to populate in terms of their flight arrangements. This will help us in terms of booking the taxis, because before we were asking the students to go through to the parents and then from the parents going back to the students to us, and it was all a bit convoluted. So this should be much easier for us in order for the house parents to collect all the information we need. Normally for half terms we are open, and we have been open for all half terms this year, but we don't open for Christmas, Easter or summer. This year we did open for Easter, but that was exceptional circumstances because there were a few boarders that couldn't go home. Christmas we definitely won't open again, and we will obviously be in contact with you if, say, there is another lockdown, things like that, and we do have to stay open over Easter. Obviously we will communicate that with you in plenty of time. Guardianship, I do have to inform you that some of the rules and regulations around guardianship have changed, so therefore we have had to write a new policy for September 2021. This means that all international boarders must have a guardian based in the UK, even those who are aged 18 or older, and that guardian should be aged 25 or above. The school can no longer act as a guardian, and because there were some issues in terms of holidays and things like that, who had the responsibility of the boarders there. We can help you find a guardian if you need to, and they can be through the BSA certified guardianship scheme, but often it is a family friend or family member who is 25 or older that we can kind of either meet or have a phone call with and check that they meet our expectations of a guardian. Why do boarders need a guardian? Well, the main thing is it's important for emergencies. Say there was a serious medical issue or students' behaviour warrants maybe a cooling off period and we need to get them off site. The guardian should then step in and act as for the parent, maybe before the parent can get here from abroad. So having a guardian is really important, and it is now one of the kind of the regulations that all schools are adopting now. In terms of food, we are promoted as a healthy eating school, and we try and promote that as much as possible, and we educate the boarders in houses along things like nutrition, what to eat. We are also a no nut products school, so nut-free school, so we can't really have nut products on site. Lots of the boarders like to have a takeaway. In order to reduce this, we are only going to allow takeaways on a Friday. That will be the only night of the week there will be a allowed one. From September, we really want to promote the Saturday night, and I think that will be we want that to be a themed night. So maybe a Mexican night, a Chinese night, and we really want the boarders involved in that in terms of the planning, designing the menu, what dishes they want. So I think that's a really exciting thing for September. And we do have the occasional treat night or takeaway night at the weekends. We might have a pizza night every so often, but that's obviously not every weekend, just occasionally. And the boarders always really enjoy that. Now, I mentioned it slightly earlier, and something that we've brought in or tried to bring in, but kind of COVID seems to keep getting in the way of it really taking off, is the boarding passport. Now, here you can see some pictures of some kind of life skills that the boarders have been doing. So here, these two boys put up a greenhouse. Here they are making 3 muffins, and this was making some kind of omelette here. The boarding passport is all about kind of recognizing all these skills and activities that boarders do, because I think they have a massive advantage over students who aren't in boarding. And you can see here, these are some of the things that we try and get the boarders to do, and then we sign off. So this is one of the boys, so trying a new sport, he's done yoga. We want them to go swimming on a Sunday evening, changing their clothes, ironing a shirt, making sure that they can wash up a bowl or cutlery correctly. So there's all these life skills that they will need for later life. That I think sometimes we assume, we take them for granted, that some of the boarders just do them anyway. So this is a way of documenting all these things, and also it's really useful for them to actually see how much they do over the year in terms of these skills and all these activities they do, and what they picked up and what they've learned. So it's a really powerful document, and we're trying to get it so we have a bronze, silver and gold section for the boarders to complete. So even if they're here for 7 years, they can do those 3 sections and then move on from the junior to the intermediate to the senior. So there should be plenty for the boarders to be doing over their 7 years with us in terms of kind of these life skills. And we've decided to make make a senior one, the junior one, because our kind of 11, 12-year-olds will have different things they need to get good at compared to our 18, 17, 18-year-olds. So for instance, for our senior ones, one of the important skills is if they're staying in the UK for a while, they might need to apply for a national insurance card. So we would kind of talk them through that and get them to apply for that, because that's a really important life skill that they will need in order to get a job or something like that. In terms of activities, we're very busy. We have a Wednesday and a Saturday activity program, where we have lots of trips, experiences. There are lots of cultural learning opportunities, and we do some skills that are also linked to the boarding passport. What I like to do is complete a list of all weekend activities that we're going to be doing over the whole year and send that out over the summer. Now, the past 2 years, my weekend activity plan has not gone the way I wanted it to, and we've had to make changes here and there. But essentially, it gives you a good idea of what the activities we're trying to plan for the next kind of from September for the following kind of 10 months. This year, despite being in a pandemic, we've been very busy. And I've just picked out a few, but we've done loads this year. We've been to Coed, we've been to escape rooms, we've had fencing. This Saturday we've got an outdoor cinema with a fish and chip van coming, and we've had a few weeks ago we had a massive summer party outside with inflatables. So even in a pandemic, there's lots of things the boarders can do, and there's loads of things that we can keep them entertained with. So it's been really good fun this year, and I can't wait. The thing we've probably missed out on this year is some trips to cities. I'm hoping, touch wood, that from September we can start doing that again, because the boarders love going to places like Liverpool, London, Manchester. They're only kind of a couple of hours away and doable on a day trip, but we didn't really get the opportunity this year. So boarders arrival day, that's happening on the 3rd of September this year. So if you don't have to quarantine, or you are quarantined elsewhere and then arrive on the 3rd, we've asked all parents to drop them off at the boarding house to be met by the house parents. But again, similar to last year, only boarders can enter the boarding house. We will help them unpack and do all those kind of things. But again, just in terms of the logistics, it would never work in terms of giving you an appointment time because of flights and things like that. So we would ask, where possible, you come and see them into the boarding house. They'll be welcomed by us, and then the boys and the girls can drop their stuff off in their rooms, and then they can come out and see you again, because we have a welcome lunch in the theatre, which will be observing social distancing if needs be. And during that lunch, well, after that lunch, we'll have a speech from Mr. Hayward, the principal, and from myself as the head of boarding. Then what I'd like you to do is come down to each of the respective houses, come and meet the house parents properly and have a chat, because there are some slight differences between the houses, and it'll be a nice opportunity for you to come and meet the house parents themselves, come and meet us, and you can ask some additional questions there. And we also have a representative from Ron Flowers there who will deal with the uniform. Now, thank you very much for sending in your questions in advance. The reason I asked this is so I can make sure that I have time to answer them properly. There won't be any time for any additional questions other than the ones that you've already sent in. But I'll explain at the end. If you do have, if anything I've kind of said today, you have any questions about, I will leave my kind of email and phone number so that you can contact me if you have any additional questions. But a lot of you are asking the same thing, so it was really useful for me to put them together in this form. So one of the first questions, can a boarder bring their own duvet? You don't need to bring the duvet itself. We provide the bed, of course, the duvet and the pillow. However, we do suggest they bring their own duvet cover and pillow cover. Again, we can provide those things, but I think it's a bit nice, that touch of home and individuality if they bring their own duvet cover and pillow cover. And again, a couple of those each is great in terms of the washing and the laundry. With laundry, we do that all on site. And there's a couple of opportunities a week for students to drop off their laundry and get it cleaned. And we ask for all clothing we ask you to liaise with the laundry and get name tags. We can sort that for you. Make sure everything's named. Obviously, we don't want things going into laundry that don't have a name on, because it's very hard to get back to the boarders themselves. But all laundry is on site, and both houses have washing machines themselves and dryers. Again, it's that bit of life skills. They can learn how to do that themselves, especially things like that maybe might be too delicate for a bigger wash in the laundry. They sometimes like to do those themselves in houses, and we've got the facilities there to do that. Is there a place to leave empty suitcases during the stay? Absolutely. Both houses have big storage rooms, or we have several storage cupboards down in Dartmouth, and you can leave your empty suitcases there. And similarly, you can leave your stuff over the summer. So if you're staying with us for maybe a few years and you packed up your room for the end of the summer, ready for a deep clean, you can leave your stuff in the store cupboards where they're nice and safely secure, locked up, and you can come and get it again in September. This list used to be a lot smaller, but now it seems to be growing. Things like an Amazon Echo, mobile phones, tablets, Bluetooth speakers, headsets, gaming consoles. Are boarders allowed to bring those? Well, the easy answer is yes, of course they are. It is their home, and I would expect any room to replicate any teenage boy or girl's room. So of course they can bring those items with them. However, they are responsible for them. And they will have to hand in all electronic devices at night. So in terms of mobile phones, tablets, laptops, things like that, we collect them in. Games consoles, I'm very conscious that a lot of games consoles are now solely online. So when I was playing with my PS2, PS3, you put the game in and you play it like that. But now a lot of them, they have to stream games from the internet. So I've met with the IT department. We've come up with a new IT policy to make sure they can still game, but they do that safely. And we get some family filters on those gaming consoles to make sure that say a 15-year-old isn't playing an 18 game. But other than that, yeah, we encourage things like Amazon Echo. That's great, can be used as an alarm to wake students up in the morning. Don't have a problem with that. So very much kind of anything that you would kind of have in a normal bedroom, you would be allowed to bring here. We ask, unless there is some exceptions in terms of if you're an elite athlete or for medical reasons, you're not allowed fridges in your rooms, mini fridges. You're also not allowed things like heaters and rice cookers, kettles, things like that. We have a kitchen in each house that has all those, so there's no need to bring any of that. Do boarders need to bring any protective equipment such as face masks? Yes, we would ask you to bring face masks with them. They will need them. As it stands at the minute, we are wearing face masks at house meetings. They must wear a face mask at school and up at the dining room, even at breakfast and dinner. So we would ask you for them to bring face masks with them. They can either bring the disposable ones, or they can get the fabric ones. I have a fabric one that I wash every so often, and I use that on a daily basis and carry that around in my pocket. So we would ask boarders to bring those with them. What if a new lockdown occurs? How we manage that? Well, last year we weren't probably in a very good position to answer that question, because we didn't really know. But from kind of January to March this year, we've managed another lockdown, and essentially we had a group of about 30 boarders that stayed on site with us the whole time. So they did their online learning with us. We had a routine, a daily routine where they go and work every day, log on to their live lessons, and we as house parents would go and monitor that. And then in the evenings we do our usual thing in terms of activities and getting the boarders involved with lots of different things. So if another lockdown occurs, they will have two options. We will stay open, so they can either go home or they can stay with us and continue with the online learning. That will no doubt that happen. But fingers crossed again, there won't be another lockdown. We've been through 3 already, so let's hope that there isn't another one. What is your policy about international students from the same country sharing rooms, corridors? Well, we try as much as possible to have pupils from different countries either sharing a corridor or sharing rooms. There are very limited occasions where we can't do that and it's simply not possible, and that might be because of ages and things like that, or swimmers who we tend to put all together because they all get up at 5 o'clock. But essentially everybody else, there's no excuse. So we mix. So we've got people from lots of different corridors. So in Dartmouth we have corridors of 5, 6, and I think in one corridor we do have a corridor where all 6 boys are from 6 different countries, which is great, and that's what boarding is about. So they learn from each other's cultures, and of course, to enable us to communicate with each other, they have to speak English. So that's a really nice kind of eclectic mix of the students that we get. So our policy is, yes, absolutely, we want people from different countries sharing and learning from each other where possible. How will the boarding house support Year 11 students with their studies and revision for GCSE, especially boarders who are swimmers and miss the allocated prep time? So in terms of Year 11, yes, we will have a big push on that year group, and Year 13 as well, in terms of their revision and preparation for exams. It's quite possible for Year 11 and 13, instead of 1 prep, they go to 2 preps, especially around kind of mocks and things like that. We have teams where all the assignments for all year groups are set, and we as house parents can monitor the assignments, make sure that all the boarders are doing the right amount of work. In terms of those who might have evening activities and miss the allocated prep time, well, it's about them as well, working with us and managing their own time as well, and perhaps sitting down with the house parents at the start of the year, looking at their weekly timetable, because it's not just the swimmers. We have boys who go and play football some evenings. We have a couple of girls that go and play tennis. So they often miss prep. So it's about communication with the house parents and looking at their timetables, looking at their evening schedule and going, right, okay, you have tennis from 4 till 7 tonight. So after a bit of downtime and a meal, from 8 till 9, you can get some work done. Again, we're very flexible, and we'll help them kind of organise their own times and create those timetables to make sure that they're not missing out on those valuable prep sessions. What does the school cover in terms of insurance and possessions? Well, we have the insurance that you can add to the school bill. I think I can't remember, it's something like £10 a term, and that just covers in terms of accidental kind of loss and damage, and it's worth picking up. There are obviously going to be safes in all the bedrooms, and all the doors are going to be on electronic locks from September. So there should be kind of no issues in terms of things going missing. Obviously, sometimes things get mislaid. The main thing that we find are AirPods. So please be very careful if your sons or daughters are bringing AirPods with them. They can be lost really easily, and we often find AirPods at the back of sofas or underneath chairs and things like that. when they think they've lost them, accuse somebody else of maybe taking them, and then we find out that they've just left them in the common room. So things like that they need to be really careful about, and they are ultimately responsible for anything that they bring with them. Can the school help to register to the NHS for the first time boarders? Yes, absolutely. Every boarder has an appointment with the school nurse in September, and she registers you to the local GP. Obviously, some of you might want to stay registered at your GP if you're already in the UK, but otherwise the school nurse will sort that out for them and do just a general health check at the start of the year. How does pocket money work, and what is the weekly allowance? So in terms of pocket money, we ask, we get parents to pay into the school account, and then if you put a reference of pocket money, that's picked up by our finance department, and the resources department then manage that. The boys or the girls will come up to the house parents and they will ask for X amount of money. We sign a slip, we go and collect that money for them, and then we hand that over to them and they sign for the right amount. What is the weekly allowance? Well, it really depends. Sometimes if there's a trip, you might want a little bit more, maybe £30. We tend to say £10 is probably enough per week. That's more for the junior boarders. The senior boarders, a lot of them either have their own bank accounts. I did try and look into things like a travel card, if you're only going to be here for maybe 1 or 2 years, that can be kind of pre-populated, and that could be topped up as well online. So there are lots of different ways, but in terms of the pocket money and how it works in school, yeah, they pay into the school account, and then we as house parents are in charge of that account, and we can let them know how much is left and things like that, and in terms of a budget. Will there be any supervision when they go out for the weekends and when they need to buy stuff? So as I said earlier, we are allowing boarders off-site, and again, that's going to be closely monitored again from September. We have a couple of local shops, a new Tesco, which is a big superstore, so food and lots of other things has recently opened up over the road. So in theory, they don't need to go very far if they need to go and buy perhaps some snacks, perhaps some stationery for school. But we also allow them into town as well, and they can go into the local area and go and look at some of the shops in the centre of town. Now, if any students are in year 10 and above, they can go into town by themselves. Anybody below year 10, we need explicit parental permission to allow them into town or to allow them to kind of some of the other shops. Boarders are all allowed to Tesco, which is just over the road. But again, if you're in years maybe 7 and 8, you must go in a group, at least 3 or 4, to make sure that if anything happens, there's someone to come back and get us. But of course, they have mobile phones, so it's important we have all the right contact details for them to make sure they're okay. What happens when a boarder is ill? So if they're ill, they tend to get flagged up either to the house parents or the school nurse. If it's during the day, they tend to go to the school nurse, who's based in the kind of, we call it the sanatorium, but it's basically the health centre. She'll check them over and kind of decide what the next steps are. If it's in the evening, the house parents will generally kind of look after the boarders. We are well trained, obviously, in all the symptoms of COVID now, even some of the newer ones we're looking out for, like headaches and runny nose. So we tend to err on the side of caution. So if we need to isolate students, we can do that. But in general, we've found out that illnesses have generally dropped this year because of our increased kind of routines. The hygiene is much better and means that kids aren't picking up like colds and tummy bugs and things like that. So it's actually been quite one of the what we call a COVID kind of success story, I guess, in terms of our managing of COVID has kind of alleviated a lot of the normal illnesses we would normally get. So yeah, they go and visit the school nurse. She's on site from 8:30 till 5 o'clock every day. And if there are any emergencies, obviously the staff would take the student straight to A&E, and we've done that several times. And we also know that we can call a number called 111 and talk through those if we need to. Are overseas parents allowed to send parcels to the kids? Yes, absolutely. And each house has the specific address for you. And we always encourage the students to take a picture of that at the start of the year, send that to their parents so they know the exact address. Because we always ask for them to put their house, so either Dartmouth House or Lichfield House, then followed by the Royal School and the rest of the address. Another question is, can the arrangement be made for students coming from red list countries? Unfortunately, at the minute, we cannot accommodate anybody from a red list country. Now, touch wood, I'm hoping the situation changes, and I'm hoping countries are removed from the red list, because otherwise we are really going to struggle. Because as you see here, this is from the government guidance, and each household should occupy part of the school site which is separated from parts of the site used by other households for isolation. Well, we have 2 boarding houses, and each of those boarding houses will be isolating kids from amber countries. So therefore, to isolate somebody from a red country who cannot isolate in either of those 2 boarding houses, they have to isolate in another separate boarding house. We don't have a 3rd boarding house. So that's the kind of the sticking point as well. And they also can't do tests for release. So they'd have to do 10 days. Which again, we're only opening on the 29th of August. Our staff have been fantastic. We opened on the 22nd of August last year, and apart from the 3-week Christmas holiday, we've been open ever since, and we're now getting to July. So we've been open for a very long time. So I don't really want to go any further into the school holidays. So there's a couple of reasons there why at the minute we can't accommodate students from a red list country, but as I said, we will keep looking to do as much as possible. So if that does affect you, please kind of keep in contact with myself, and we'll see how the situation kind of progresses over the next month or so. One final thing that I'd like to flag up, and this is essentially kind of a formal kind of informational kind of webinar. And I'm very conscious that you're listening to all this information and digesting it. But next week, what I would like to do is a chance for all our new boarders to meet our house parents virtually, and also not only meet the house parents, but meet some of our current boarders. And it won't be a PowerPoint presentation like this. It'll be much more kind of for a chat, and for them to ask questions and for them to respond, and for it to be a 2-way thing. So the invitation for that will be sent out later this week. But other than that, I really appreciate your time. As you can see, these are just pictures from some of the activities. I mean, you'd never think, looking at some of these pictures, that we were in a pandemic. We were still able to do all of these things while still meeting some of our COVID safe procedures. We had skateboarding, we got a climbing wall on the site, fencing, trampoline with a bungee, went to play mini golf, and then some releasing our balloons at the summer party. So even in the pandemic, loads of things that the boarders can be doing, and it's been a really exciting year despite some of the disruptions. So hopefully that's back to my face now. I really appreciate you tuning in for this webinar. That's it from me. As I said, hopefully I'll meet some of the new boarders next week, and again that'll be a bit more interactive, a 2-way. I hope that I've answered all the questions that you've had. I hope I've reassured you. I hope I've given you an insight to what you can expect from September. I'm really excited about it, and I hope you are too. If you have any more questions, hopefully you've got my email and the number, and what I'll do on the invitation again that I send out to all our new boarders, I'll put my details on there, so you can contact me anytime. Any questions, please just ask. Other than that, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I'm going to stop the recording now, and the recording will be sent out to all of you, so you can kind of double check things if you need to. Other than that, thank you so much for joining, and have a nice evening. Thank you.